For this step, you need to attach the front of the bag to the back of the bag. So right here I have sitting the back of the bag with the pocket sewn onto it. And just a reminder, this is the front. As we know, it has the logo, it has the pocket. We're going to attach these two pieces now to each other, basically sewing them on both sides and the bottom, leaving the top open because if you sew it shut, you no longer have a bag. So to start doing this, the first thing you need to do is you need to release these folded over edges because we want to try to sew right from where we left off here all the way down across and up the other side. I'm holding a little bit of seam allowance back so I can see exactly where my corner is. I'll go in with my scissors, and you might want to use smaller scissors if you feel like they're more comfortable and easier to control. But just go ahead and make a little snip so that this can now lay open like this. You're going to do this same little cut to all of your remaining corners. Once you have cut all 4 of your corners, you can now flip them and lay them open. And if you want, if they're really wanting to curl back on you, you can go and press them to keep them open like this. However, if they are cooperating and staying flat, now it's time to go ahead and start laying your project's right sides together. So the bag looks like it's inside out. By now you know that most of the sewing you do is always inside out, so that when we flip it, your seam allowances are hidden on the inside. I like to be kind of fussy about this top corner here. As you can see, I'm trying to line up my 2 casings just perfect on top of each other. And I'm trying to pin to keep those flaps open. Okay, if you press them, they will definitely stay open. I first pin that top corner, then I come down and I pin this bottom corner. I pin my next corner, the other side of the bottom. Here's where my zipper is. If you haven't already zipped it out of the way, go ahead and do that. So if it's shut like this, open it up part way to get it out of your way when you're sewing. Now I'm pinning my other top corner. Again, holding those seam allowances open and trying to pin it out flat so it stays flat just like that. Once you've got your 4 corners pinned, you can go ahead and add extra pins to each one of those 3 sides. You may find in some cases that perhaps they don't line up perfectly. A lot of your seams here are long enough that if you stretch a little bit while you sew, you will be able to get them to line up. So I tell people always stretch first and try to pin it as close to where it likes to fall when you stretch as you can. And then as you sew, just give it a little pull and you shouldn't have any issue with your sides lining up to each other. I've added a few pins to each side of my project here so you can see there's approximately 4 to 5 pins per side. And now I'm going to go ahead and sew. It's really important when you start to make sure you start in the right spot. A lot of students make the mistake of starting somewhere down here, and the problem with starting that far away from your casing is that when you look at the bag from the right side, you will see those little raw edges sticking out. You want to hide those. So make sure you start close enough to the casing that those little pieces will be hidden. So I'm kind of starting it on the very edge of the casing. Oops. So lining it up, putting your needle down, your foot down. I'm sewing on the 15 line. You want to make sure that you're sewing far enough in that you don't see any of this serging once the bag is finished and you flip it right side out. So aim for somewhere between the 10 and the 15 line and be consistent with that. This is another spot where you may decide to reverse a few times. Again, this is the top of the bag. It's going to get pulled apart frequently, so to make it stronger, you could reverse a second time and then go ahead. Just make sure if your sides don't quite line up, remember to give it a little bit of a stretch while you sew to make it lay flat. You can see where it bubbles because it's a tiny bit bigger here than the underside. A small stretch will make it lie flat. Make sure you're staying on the inside of that stitching. As you approach the zipper here, just double check that your zipper pull is out of the way and that it feels flat. There's no immediate problems that you're going to run into or things you're going to hit with the needle. So just be aware of that. Remember, you can sew through this tape. So you're going to continue in a straight line. As you approach the finish, remember you want to have the same thing here where you don't want to stop too low down, because when you flip the bag right side out, we don't want to see those raw edges sticking out. So bring the end of your stitching right up into the actual casing. Stretch a bit if you need to get them to line up. If the fabric is trying to fold itself under, just don't be afraid to lift your foot and kind of give it a push and a pull. Lift and push right into that top edge, then do a reverse. Right into that top edge. So those top edges on both the left and the right side are definitely a little bit thick, and they can be a little resistant to being sewn. You might have to use the hand wheel and give it a little gentle pushing and pulling to get it to go. Your bag is now complete. It is inside out. All you need to do now is your finishing details. You'll need to finish your corners with the grommet details for your drawstring, and you'll also need to actually cut and insert your drawstring into the top. But the bag is essentially done at this point. This is roughly the finished product.